Hello, welcome to Math for All, where we try to make math creative, curious, and inclusive for everyone. I'm Molly Vokey.
And I'm Heidi Subnani. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We're really excited to speak with our friend Courtney, and we hope that you will follow along on Blue Sky or on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. You can find us at any of those locations, as well as our website if you are interested in finding out more about the work that we're doing. Additionally, we have a book.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah. So you can find that at DideX. And we're just really excited to continue this season 5. If you are just joining us this season, while we always like to highlight women and non-binary folk in our work and balance that out as far as who is coming on this season, that we're only having women and non-binary folk on. So hopefully you're enjoying it as much as we are. We just may continue this pattern for a while.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah, and we are going to be talking about creating a culture of learning for all in our schools today. And we are going to be talking about that with Courtney Flessner. So let me introduce. Courtney is the director of Keep Indiana Learning. She has spent 17 years working in public, private, and public charter schools in Indiana, New York City, and Wisconsin. She has been a classroom teacher in grades 1 through 6 and 7th and 8th grade mathematics. She has worked as an instructional coach, administrator, and taught elementary math methods at Indiana University, Indianapolis. Currently, she is working to complete her PhD from Indiana University in mathematics education. Courtney prioritizes working with schools to help them better understand what instructional leaders need to do to support the creation of environments where elementary teachers of mathematics feel supported in implementing and sustaining ambitious and equitable mathematics teaching practices. She is determined to change the narrative of admitting that one is not a math person by inspiring teachers to teach ambitiously, maybe even have a little fun while doing so. Courtney is also married to a math educator, Ryan Flessner. Therefore, thinking and talking about the teaching of learning of math is something she is doing often. But when she isn't, you'll find her cheering on her 2 kids, Abel and Adeline, as they transition from high school to college learning, and athletic endeavors, playing with the co-founders of the Best Friends Club, her 2 dogs, Kip and Buddy, or quietly relaxing with a Diet Coke in hand. All right, here she is. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. I'm lamenting I don't have a Diet Coke in hand right now, so I do not plan properly
like
for
you
that.
really messed up. You really messed up. Oh, well, that's okay. We don't have anything in hand, so it's all good.
It is all good.
Okay.
Well, we love to start here. Depending on what people know about you, they can get to know you a little bit more this way. So, Courtney, what is your math story?
Okay, so I knew you were going to ask this, and so I feel like I tell this a lot, and sometimes I wonder if people think I'm making it up because but I also think I have a story that a lot of some math educators do have, where like I was the one that didn't like math. When I found out I only needed to take 3 years of it in college or in high school so that I could get into college, I was delighted. I just didn't connect with it. I have really poor memories of feeling very deflated particularly in high school, and just not understanding what I was being taught, and just really kind of declared myself not a math person. And so fast forward to college, and I met my now husband, Ryan, and he loved math and he loved numbers. And I have this very distinct memory of driving down the road one day, and there was a time on the, clock, like the clock radio, and he made a math he made an equation out of it. And he goes, "Now you do one." And I was like, what is he doing? This weird dude is making math like equations out of the time. But it was also like kind of charming because he was like very insistent, like, you do one, you can do one. And his persistence, forced me to make an equation out of the numbers. And I kind of just was like, whatever. But I didn't really fully understand his love of math until I guess we were married and I first started teaching. But I have a really distinct memory of I was teaching third grade, my first year of teaching, and I was doing subtraction, and I had a tub of base 10 blocks in my room. And I brought them home from school and I sat them on the table, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I can use these to teach subtraction, but I have no idea how. And like, when I think about that moment, that totally sums up the first like 22 years of my life. And I, as a teacher and in charge of this room full of third graders, I knew I was in trouble. Like, I needed to know how to teach them. I needed to know what I was doing in math. So I ended up during my first 3 years doing a lot of professional development. I got trained in Math Their Way. I moved to first and second grade, and Math Their Way was like this monumental, life-changing professional development for me, where I ended up really liking teaching math during those years because I learned so much and I was able to apply it. Anyway, go through the years. I have different jobs. I'm teaching fourth and fifth grade. I'm teaching humanities only. I'm moving around for grad school. And I end up in a small town just south of Madison, Wisconsin, while my husband was getting his PhD at the University of Wisconsin, where so much of the CGI work came out with Tom Carpenter. And we had just adopted a new, I had just moved there. The district had just adopted everyday math, and we had really good training. And part of the training was just follow this, and everyone will be fine. And I can remember sitting there and being like, awesome. Like, awesome.
Yeah, great. I would like to be fine.
Work. But like a couple of things happened during that time. One, I couldn't just follow it. Like, that wasn't working. Everybody wasn't fine. Two, part of the work was time tests. They had time tests in that iteration. I don't know if it still does. And three, I was exposed to algorithms that I had never seen before in my life. I had never seen the area model. I had never seen partial products. I was teaching, I taught fourth and fifth grade during this time. I'd never seen any of that. And I can distinctly remember like learning the area model and partial products and feeling like I had been cheated my entire life. Like, because I didn't like the algorithm, the traditional US algorithm for multiplication. Like, it made me nervous. I didn't understand it. I didn't like it. And all of a sudden the numbers like make sense. Like this, like it was like, what is happening? Like why am I, what was I, 29 years old and I'm just now learning about this, and so between that and time tests, and learning how to give a fact interview and sitting down with my kids and asking them questions, like I'd never asked questions in math before. I was very good at asking questions about what they were thinking about in reading and what they were thinking about in writing and really every other area, but not math. And I'm interviewing a kid and he tells me that he just, he turned the 9 to a 10 to add, 9 plus 7. I'm sitting there like, I'm sorry, you did what? Like, you're just changing numbers, like, I didn't know you could do that. And so so between all of that and Ryan doing his work in Madison and bringing home, all of these different ideas and being like, try this. And I was a total typical teacher. Like, no, I don't want to try that. everybody, the funny story is like, nobody likes you. Like nobody likes the guy that comes in and tells them how to do stuff, and then I would go and I would do it because what I was doing wasn't working, and it always works. So I would come home and I would ask more questions. So I really went on this journey of, how do I do this? How do I do this well? Made a lot of connections between the teaching of math to the teaching of reading and writing. That helped me a lot. And ultimately, I as an administrator and instructional coach, people were coming to me and asking like, math is no good in my classroom. Like it looks, reading and writing, I've got that under control. The kids love it, but math, like, no, it's boring. And I'm just talking to them. And I was like, great, like, let's work on that together. And I was still learning a lot. I was relearning the content. I was relearning. I was understanding what it meant to have math identity, all these things. So eventually, in 2014, I think it was now, I left schools to work on my PhD and teach at IUPUI math methods courses, and started doing a ton of work in schools. And I honestly just like, I'm a dissertation away from having my PhD in math education. And that is like, that is unbelievable, really. When I was doing victory laps as a junior in high school, that I could take photography instead of math. So yeah, so it's really big. And I run across people like that all the time. And so I really wish I had like journal entries or like a video. Like I wish I had documentation of my process, because it was a journey. There was a lot of vulnerability. There was a lot. I was embarrassed a lot. Not being able to connect with the kids was so hard, and knowing what to do for them was so hard. But I asked a lot of questions. I asked a lot of questions of them. I asked a lot of questions of my mentors, and I read a ton, and just this whole world opened up that I never would have thought could. So
it's kind of amazing what happens when you put your ego. I mean, I'm translating from what you said. I'm not saying that you had a giant ego, but like when you put your ego down and you allow yourself the vulnerability to move on from your previous understandings, it's kind of like magical. I mean, this is what we're supposed to be doing all the time, but sometimes it's just so glaring, like your story and Heidi's story. I mean, the logistics of it aren't the same, but it's a very similar story.
Yeah. And it's true. Maybe it was ego, I don't know, but for whatever reason, like absolutely 100%, I would get defensive when I was told like, you're doing it wrong, or that's not what that should look like, or whatever. But I also was doing it wrong. And what I was doing wasn't working, and the kids were not connecting with math. Nobody was having any fun. And I'm not like a math should be fun person. Like, it's not about that, but there was like no engagement. It was just so dry. Like it wasn't working. And that like math class shouldn't be like that. And so, and I think what I was very comfortable with was being like, I don't know this. And like, what else don't I know? And that curiosity became like a driving force in learning how to do this the right way that would work for every child I encountered, no matter where they were from and who they were. Without that, and without the, I don't know, I was okay messing up, like, you finish a math lesson and you look out at the sea of faces and there's nothing, it wasn't their fault. There was nothing. Like, I needed to do something different. Like, I would be like, okay, we're going to do that again tomorrow, but we're going to do it very differently, because what I just didn't work, and I was okay with that. And I thought a lot about that, it's been a minute, but we had tests, I had principals, telling us our data and telling us what we needed to fix and all the glaring stuff. Like all of that was happening. But I also knew like there were lots of ways to measure growth, and progress that my students could make could be seen in so many different ways. And if I would give them the opportunity to learn, then they would start making the connections I really wanted them to make. So I was okay with my test scores not being great, because I was looking at other things, and my test scores weren't bad, like the growth that kids made over time was phenomenal. And so I just didn't let that stuff weigh on me heavily. And if an administrator was getting worked up, I was just like, okay, like I am legitimately doing the best I can and the best I know. And so I was okay with that,
It takes a lot of confidence to do all the things that you just said, right? To kind of ignore, but not ignore the data, or be okay with the data, or, whatever, knowing that there's probably going to be growth because you're growing. Mm-hmm. But all of that takes a tremendous amount of confidence while you're being very vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Does that even make sense what I'm saying? Because
no, it really doesn't. It's almost like an oxymoron, right? Like, how are you confident and vulnerable at the same time? And I think maybe there's a piece in there of like just the acknowledgement of like, I've got some work to do.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And isn't that the case in so many layers of life? Like, I've got some work to do. And so, yeah. I think that's a layer of it.
Well, and I think it's those moments when we think, oh yeah, I'm all set. That, like that we should probably get out of this career, because for all of us, it's like continually trying to tweak and understand and think about like, how are we supporting the students and the teachers that we are working with to help them in their best math life or their best literacy life, whatever it happens to be. So part of that like mindset is what is so critical to the work that you do, that we do, and helping both teachers and kids think about how they learn and how that connects to what they already know.
Yeah. And understanding that adults, I mean, we don't learn the same way as kids. It's a different situation, but there's always something to build from, and everybody's in a different place. And that's a very complex piece of the puzzle that like, I did not identify as a math person. I did not want to sit down and do math problems. I did not want to ask questions about math. I did not want to do that. The irony is, and I grew up in a family where my dad was in marketing and he wrote, and my mom was a theater person and taught English. And we did a lot of sports, and nobody was like walking around the house talking about how they weren't math people, but I don't know. I feel like there was like kind of a thing in there where like, that's not what we do here. We do the arts. We do sports. We do.
These are our other identities, which automatically means we're not that.
Yeah. But the crazy piece about it is the amount of math involved in all of those things is remarkable. Like spending regular time at Wrigley Field with my dad, talking about stats, explaining how batting averages were found, like and on-base percentages, and understanding the numbers in the field and how to keep score. Like that's all math. Mm-hmm. Over the course of time, as Ryan became a part of our family, and you couldn't like not be somewhere not talking about math. I remember one time specifically at Wrigley Field where there was a rain delay, and so Ryan goes, "Let's do some math" with my parents. So I know. So he just starts randomly giving math problems. I don't even know what they were, and then he would say, "How did you get that? Like, what were you like? What were you thinking about?" Like he would talk, and my parents thought it was delightful. It was very charming, right? Like they were getting college Ryan at a much later time in life, and I would say, or, so over the course of time, that would always happen. Like, how are you thinking about that? What are you doing? To the point that, honest to goodness, not long before my dad passed away, like kind of suddenly, we were talking about something and he was processing numbers in his head and like going through a situation. And then he goes, and like on the tip of my tongue was right ready to say, Dad, how'd you figure that out? And he goes, and the way that I figured that out was
he was properly trained
because he knew it was coming. So it's almost like that, like, that engagement with people and that persistence, and that like we're gonna keep asking that question, we're gonna keep talking about it. I had a student once say, will you just tell her how you figured that out? I'm tired of her asking us. Like, will you all just start telling her? And I remember thinking, this is amazing. I'm being so annoying that they now know that they have to talk about their justifications because I'm asking no matter what. And, and that's that culture building that we're going to talk about math, and do I need everybody sitting at baseball games doing math problems? No, but understanding that those conversations are so just important in the entire process is a giant piece of the puzzle.
Well, I do feel like that leads us right to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So how can we create a culture of learning for all students in our school? I mean, you're the way you're talking about it is kind of like more familial.
Mm-hmm.
Does it just still apply in schools?
Oh, no, for sure. So my first year that I was an instructional coach, I had a teacher come to me and she literally said, I have reading and writing figured out. Math is not good. It was like November. And I said, okay, like, let's talk about that. And I said, when you walk into your room, do you know that math is happening there? And she looked at me. I can remember where we were standing in the hall. And she looked at me and she goes, no. And she goes, it's obvious reading happens. There's books and bookshelves. And it's obvious writing happens because there's a whole center for it and all these things and a word wall and all these things. And she goes, there's no sign of math. And I said, so that's the first thing to change. And I said, when I was my start, when I taught first grade and I took those first graders to second grade and I did a bunch of math PD that summer. And I said, I literally took all of my math stuff and put it in the middle of my room. Like it was the center of my room. And she was like, that's interesting. And we kind of talked a little bit about it. And then the next day I come to school and she has moved all of her math stuff to the middle of her room. And she goes, you can't miss it now. Like math is happening in here. And I was like, awesome. And then we sort of started on this journey. Her name's Liz Kiefer. She's not teaching anymore. And she's quite frankly, one of the very best teachers I've ever worked with. And she's got like 7,000 children now. That's not true. I think only 4, but
I mean, that rounds up to 7,000.
They're very lucky. They're so lucky. But we kind of started co-constructing this idea of like the first 20-ish days of math, or we called it the first 20. And that's 2014. And over the years, I've grown that and evolved it and worked on it with many different teachers and read a lot and added a bunch to it. And I've kind of taken out the first 20 part because, for many different reasons. I moved into Ish, which was funny because it came out before Joe Bowler's Ish book. I'm not taking that term, but when that came out, I was like, Ish, like, yes, first 20-ish days of school. This is I've been talking about this. Because it doesn't have to be like Liz and I started in November. And maybe, and I've developed it into like these 4 quadrants, and like maybe we're just going to work on this one piece of it, and we're going to do these routines and these ideas and this stuff to help build this culture of mathematics. And what does that look like and sound like in our classroom? And it's been really cool to watch that over time kind of evolve. I have got all these big plans on what I'd like to turn that into. But in the past year, I started thinking, what would this look like for teachers? And can I take this exact same framework and put it into like a teacher, point of view, which is a totally different spin because there's a lot of like baggage coming along with it, right? So that's been really fun to think about too. And like, what are we doing with our teachers? Because everywhere I go, there's resistance. There are coaches and administrators that are having a hard time, getting teachers to get on board, whether it's an elementary teacher who doesn't doesn't identify with math at all, or a secondary teacher who's like, I've got this, I was great at math, I know what I'm doing. You get, both sides. So how are we giving them experiences so that they are working on their math identity? They're thinking about what it means to collaborate. They're strategically thinking about the math that they're doing. So, so that's been a really fun thing to think about.
So what have you come up with for that? Because I feel like I understand like the first 20-ish days when you're thinking about teaching math to students, because you have those kids in front of you for 20-ish days every day. But for teachers, you don't get to see them as, I mean, it depends on who you are, right? Like if you're the principal, maybe you do get to see them every day, and maybe you are having discussions with them every day or several times a week or whatever. But like, how do you see that playing out in your thinking about doing this with teachers?
Yeah, I think a lot of it lies in like, first, really defining how they see themselves in the world of math. And, and it's not like, it's just who am I? How do I view myself as someone who does math and myself as someone who teaches math, and kind of starting there. And then what's the vision for how you want to see yourself as a teacher of math or someone who does math? And a lot of times teachers will be like, I don't want to be someone who does math.
Right.
Yeah. And the response is that you are someone who does math because you teach it. So let's do some math together. And, giving them experiences to engage in math the same way that we want our students engaging in math helps them really think about, like, I just did a workshop today on real world problem solving. And we did this whole task at the beginning, and when it was over, they all sat there and they were like, we just did so many different things in that one task. And I'm like, yes. They're like, we talked about it, we built it, we drew it, we made models, like, and they go, how did you do that? And I said, because I was intentional about sort of how I scaffolded those experiences for you. And by the end, like, they're looking around and they're noticing like some of their answers are different, but they didn't care. Like, they were having these great conversations about why are the answers different? Why does my picture look different from your picture? Why do my 1-inch tiles have this organization, but your 1-inch tiles have that organization? And it's like, they were exploding with ideas of, wow, like, this is what we want in our classrooms. I'm like, yeah. But they had to have that experience first. And finishing that with sort of a reflection of, okay, so what is this telling you about the teaching of math? And what is this telling you about the learning of math? And we always have to look through that lens of what are the students doing? What's the teacher doing? Because that helps the teacher make those moves, So, and sometimes if we don't have time for that, it can just be let's look at these two pictures of math that we did together last time, or math that our students did, and let's talk about it. Like, what's happening here? How did they solve this problem? And just starting very small in that way. Like, you want more discussion in your classroom during mathematics, then you got to create possibilities for that to happen. You want to know what that looks like? Let's do it together in our grade level, or let's do it together, as a whole staff, whatever it may be. Because you're right. It's a slow roll. Is that the right term? It's slow. because
it's slow but fast at the same time, right? We don't get to have the kids. I mean, we don't get to have teachers for the concentrated amount of time that teachers get to have students. Mm-hmm. So, and teachers are hopefully more mature than students in their learning, right? So it does have to be fast and slow at the same time. Like you have to create that experience for them. But what you would do for students, you would create that experience like 5 times as the amount that you would for a teacher, maybe. Right. I don't know. I'm just making up numbers, but yeah, I love that. I mean, I'm trying to envision this in a school, and I want to go there.
Yep.
And see, like, how does a principal or a math coach or whoever is instituting this in their school, like, it has to be a culture, right?
Yep.
Obviously, that's what we're talking about. Like, how do you fit it into the schedule? Like, how do we talk about this so that it is in the schedule? And how do we make sure that everyone understands that this is a priority and actually wants it to be a priority? Like, there's a lot that goes along with that.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, you ask a great question, but I think about like PLCs. You know, I see PLCs get, you know, the structure of them different in a lot of different places. But like, if we're going to look at student work or student data, great. But why don't we do some of those math problems first? So that when we look at the data, we can be thinking about why did they maybe make those mistakes? What were they maybe thinking? What questions could I ask to get a little bit more clarity? What's the one tiny little thing that they're missing that they might be able to do? Because in that way, now we're talking about math. We're talking about representations. We're talking about the thinking that kids are doing, but we're also starting to make those content connections and thinking about the progression of math in really beautiful ways. So that's the PLC is happening. So rather than just looking at the red, yellow, and green numbers and putting them into groups and then making, you know, random decisions about what we're going to do in those spaces, let's do some of that math together. I recently had someone say to me, the teachers won't give their assessments. Like they had these like weekly assessments. And I said, well, tell me why. They don't want to grade them. And I said, okay, so what I'm hearing you saying is they don't understand why they're giving them.
Yeah.
They think they're giving them so that the number can go into an Excel spreadsheet. Why don't you all choose one problem, do that problem together, think about how an experience you might, that the majority of the kids maybe miss. What kind of experience can you give them in class the next day to reteach that? But you had that discussion together because you did that problem together. Like give purpose for the work that we're asking the teachers to do.
I think that's a huge, huge piece because so often we are taking the time to like sort and grade them in the PLC, like, and that's, I mean, a lot of teachers would hate me. That's not the time for that. Like the professional learning part of it is we come with a problem that we've kind of like selected as a group. And then we're going to look at that and do the math and think about what's the next right thing for this kid. And what do we need to do to make that happen? And when we don't have that preparation or those routines built in, I think that's one of the biggest barriers to making that actually happen. Like, okay, like this is the routine we're going to run when we talk about student work and student data that we're collecting so that that continues over time.
Yeah.
But I feel like it goes back to the idea that like, if you're building a culture for everyone, teachers will agree we need to build culture for students. I don't know that all teachers necessarily agree that we have to build culture for teachers and have that be the same culture that we're building for kids. And I think that's a real component of what you're talking about.
Yeah. If we want our teachers to think about teaching math differently, then we have to have a culture where risk taking is okay. We have to have a culture where if we make a mistake, we're going to learn from that mistake and figure out how to do it better next time. Mm-hmm. Just like in our classrooms, right? Like we want kids to realize like you might not get the right answer to this problem the very first time you do it, but there is some really cool math that you're going to learn that you're going to be able to connect to the next thing that you do. And so when we establish those same types of routines in our schools where we're creating an environment where we're going in to watch each other teach. I don't know if you guys have read the book Learning Together by Elham Kazemi, and Lindsay Gibbons is an author on it. And
I haven't read that one.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Well, I'll tell you, Heidi probably has, even though she's frozen right now, but she has.
I don't know why I'm so frozen.
Oh my gosh, you're physically frozen, but you can hear us. Okay.
Yeah.
She has every book known to man.
No, I'm feeling like I'm not sure I have that one.
I'm like sitting here wondering where my copy is because it's like falling apart. I read it so much, but it's all about how they took this sacred time of math professional learning that was embedded into the school day, and how they did problems together, and they thought about ways kids might solve them or not solve them, and then taking it back to the classroom and trying it out, and then coming back and fixing what what didn't go right, and they have a whole framework for it, and it's phenomenal. And
sounds very much like lesson study.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is like lesson study. Yeah. It's the consistency in it, though, and how it's a regular thing, and it's sacred time. And the number one component of it, the principal was involved in every single piece of it, and that was sacred time for the principal. And I cannot put enough emphasis on the leader positioning himself or herself as a learner right next to the teachers, the incredible impact that has on what's happening in our classrooms.
And that sends a bigger message than just math.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a message. We're all here learning together. And like every teacher would say they believe in lifelong learning.
Mm-hmm.
But like that is a way that you show that you believe in lifelong learning.
Yep. And that you're prioritizing the teaching and learning. And like, I was an administrator, I was putting out, almost literal fires in the cafeteria. I get it. There's a lot going on, but when you have scheduled this sacred time, when you are saying, I've got some stuff to learn too, we're going to figure this out together. That is such a huge difference than, putting everybody in the cafeteria, slamming their test scores down in front of them and being like, what's your plan to fix this all? Because I've seen that too. And like, so what kind of culture are we establishing here? And I love what you said, Molly, because this work that we're doing around math is going to filter into every single other thing that's happening in the building. And just like in the classroom, and I've had people that have done my first 20 days, they'll be like, but everything that we're doing is connected to what we want them doing in the other content areas. And I'm like, yes. And so why not teach that stuff through math? And, why not establish that building culture through our conversations about math? Because that we're going to make real impact that way. And it's going to work through every content area. It doesn't, we want to cultivate curiosity in all the content areas, not just mathematics, So,
but math, I mean, if you really think about math, what math can offer a group of teachers who are, or even custodians and every person in the building, it's a place where people have all those feelings like you were talking about, so we can get vulnerable together. And really, it is a place where you can build culture. Like if you are going to be bringing, excerpts from Shakespeare, I'm not really sure if that would be happening. Not to be dissing ELA or anything, but I just think like the tinkering that you can do with math as you have described beautifully today, is really something that can be really valuable as
Sure.
a collective unit in a school.
I love that you said that, because I actually had an English teacher just on Monday. She's like a data person in her district now. She said she didn't like teaching Shakespeare. And I said to her, I was like, I bet there's something that you loved about Shakespeare. I bet that there is some lesson that you learned. And she's looking at me, she's like, don't do that. Don't do that about Shakespeare. She's heard me do it so much with math, but that's a point. Like, okay, so if I'm given this problem in math class that I just don't get, and I'm not sure where to start, and I'm truly grappling, how does that transfer to when I read a Shakespeare passage and I'm like, no idea what you were talking about here. You know, for me, it was the Odyssey. Oh my gosh, I was a mess reading the Odyssey, but I read it 3 different times, and by the 3rd time, I was like, I know this. Like, ask me any question I can't do it anymore because it's been a while, but I was all about it. But I had to keep going back, and I had to like ask some questions and read some other things to try to figure out the characters a little bit more and what's happening here. And then by the time I got to my 3rd time reading it, I was like, I got this. And that's exactly what we're doing in math class. I don't understand this part of it. How am I going to break this down? How am I going to go back, relearn something, and ask myself some more questions? Like, this is what these are life skills.
Right. And you can do that with a single problem in math. Yep. Like, you don't have to read a whole story or, you know, a sonnet or a book or whatever. You can just solve one problem and still have a similar outcome. I love this. I'm signing up for your school.
I don't know about that. It's been really fun to think about, and it's fun to, you know, kind of continue carrying on the idea of like what, you know, so what types of activities are we having teachers do? Like how does that transfer? You know, and is it okay for 5th grade teachers to be doing 1st grade math and 1st grade? Because 1st grade teachers will be like, I don't do 5th grade math. And I'll be like, and here you do. Like, we're going to grapple together, you know, and this is developmentally appropriate for you, I promise, you know, and it's taking off like, there's no shame. There's no, you know, in here, we all do math. You know, in here, nobody has to be the smartest person in the room. I was actually thinking about that today. I've had a really long few weeks, and last night I was doing some math to prepare for my day to day, and I was stuck. I was like a deer in headlights. I'm like, I do not know how to do this number line. I'm gonna have to just call it because I can't even think right now. And then today I sat down with teachers. I was like, let's do this together, you know, and we did it together. And I was like, you know, traumatized by last night and how I couldn't figure it out on my own. And so I was like, but you know what? That's not going to stop me from doing it today. But I am going to say, let's do it together. And by doing it together, and we're all asking questions and we're all thinking, like, we're all making sense of it in different ways. And sometimes the participant might make sense of it before I do because of how it's going down and what's happening. So I think that there's such a value in that. Like, let's do this together. You know?
That's the lifelong learning, right?
Yeah.
The vulnerability that we all want our kids to have and our teachers to have, and you're just showing it right there.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's fun to think about. And I also just really like the connection between kids and teachers, and, you know, just everybody establishing themselves as someone who's in the process of learning. And everybody's on a different journey. Everybody's at a different point in the path. There's no 2 journeys that are the same. And, but there's beautiful ways that we can all come together in the midst of that. And not creating those opportunities to do that it just feels like kind of a loss. And, you know, I acknowledge and recognize that I am not working in a school full time right now. And I do not know what that feels like and looks like. Like, I understand that. But I will go out on a limb and say, in the buildings, in the classrooms where the time is being taken to do these things, there's a distinct difference. And by spending the time to establish the culture, we're not giving up on we don't have to give up on content. We don't have to give up on our goals of, having everybody at proficiency. Like we don't have to do that. You can do both at the same time. This isn't a one or the other situation. And we have, this is a gift. This is a privilege to be able to do this with teachers and students.
And I honestly think that if you work to create this culture, all of those other things come along. Mm-hmm. Right? The more comfortable students feel with their classmates and their teacher, the more questions they ask. The more questions they ask, the more questions they ask. The more questions they ask, the more they know, and the more risks they're willing to take. I mean, the problem that they wouldn't do on that one standardized test, maybe now they're willing to do that because they've taken enough risks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that, because in Indiana, our test is, what's the word where the questions change?
Oh, adaptive.
Adaptive. Thank you. Goodness. And when it's an adaptive test, if you skip a problem, that's not good, right? Like that could change the whole trajectory of the way the rest of the questions, lay out. So the Indiana Department of Education was doing a presentation at our ESC, and someone asked, and I'm never going to forget this. And I'm not shaming him if he's listening, or I don't even know who you were. So I'm sorry. This is not a shame, but he said, so if I have a kid in my class who gets to a division problem and he's like, I'm no good at division, I don't want to solve that problem right now, what's he supposed to do? And I was in the back of the room like, whoa, your number one thing right now, I didn't say this out loud, except I did to the person next to me who I didn't even know. So she was really lucky. But I was like, the number one thing that you have to do right now is that kid doesn't say that in your class. That kid gets a problem that he is uncomfortable with, and he has a way of working through that discomfort and trying something out. Period.
Back to the culture.
Right. Exactly.
Back to the culture.
Exactly. And and I'm not living in la la land where everyone's going to love math and make, number sentences out of the time and whatever. But we can create humans who are like, I'm going to go after that, and we can have teachers who believe that every child in class can go after that. And that's the culture that you have to establish. Not if you don't understand it, just skip it and move on. Like, it's okay that you're no good at it. Skip it and move on. Like, no, that's not that's the opposite of what we want to do. And if the reason is so that the adaptive test is giving us the right trajectory and pathway, fine. Let that be the reason, but also let it be the reason because it should be the reason.
Well, and I think it's like one of those moments where I'm working in an elementary school where I have like that like perfect lineup of like district thinking, principal thinking, teacher. They're like, we're all like in a line. Like it's very rare. It's happened to me one other time where like every like key player in the chain is moving in the same direction. But we were having this conversation and they're like, we're really feeling kind of stressed because we have this new SEL program that we're supposed to be doing during morning meeting as well. But we have this whole math routine that we do during morning meeting and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, so let's look at those two things, those side by side. What overlap do we have between what we're wanting to teach kids about social and emotional learning and what we want to teach kids about math resilience or problem solving, or what to do when we feel uncomfortable because we don't recognize a word that's in the story? It's like giving the pause to think about, okay, like we're trying to do all of these things in silo. I have to find the time for this SEL thing. Well, no. Yeah. How are we doing that during our math time and during our literacy time, where we're giving students and teachers the opportunity to say, okay, the SEL thing that we're working on is what do we do when we feel frustration?
Right. absolutely.
No one ever feels that in math, so no worries.
No, you're so right. And you know, I remember saying the exact same thing, Heidi, being like, you wanted to work on SEL, have kids solve math problems in the way that makes sense to them. Don't force them to do it in a way that does it. Then have them talk to each other about it. Then have them have a disagreement about how they arrived at the answer / you know, if they got different answers, and then have them come to, you know, realization of who's right and who's wrong and be in agreement of it. You just did some really great SEL work, and it was in math class.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it doesn't have to be one additional thing.
No, it really doesn't.
You're already doing it.
Yeah, I had an EL teacher in my thing today, or she might have been the like EL coach for the district. I can't remember. And when we got done with one activity, she looked at me and she goes, "That's everything we want happening for our English language learners." And I go, "Right." I go, "And it's just good teaching. It's not like a whole other thing." And she was like, "Whoa." I was like, "Yeah."
Right, because I mean, if you think about teaching, like there are tons of people in the world who teach who aren't teachers. Right? Like I would say my husband is not a teacher, but he's an excellent teacher. You want to learn how to do something complicated, you ask that guy if he knows how to do it. He's going to teach it to you in the most simplistic way, and you're going to get it, and you're going to feel very good about yourself. So like, yeah, of course, teaching is teaching.
Yeah.
Subjects change and things are a little different, but I love this conversation. All right, so we're going to start at school. And it's going to be like the most harmonious school ever. So fun.
Yeah, we might all have to live in the same place.
Okay, well, that could be problematic at the moment, but that could change.
You never know.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time. How can our listeners learn more about you?
Well, you can find out everything that, you know, we're doing at Keep Indiana Learning at keepindianalearning.org. It's, you know, it's the professional learning department of the Central Indiana Educational Service Center. I'm in my 5th year there, and I'm lucky to have an opportunity to do the work that I want to do there. And you know, just try to create as much access to information for teachers and leaders as possible, and with the correct, you know, filters and vetting and all of that. So that's one place for sure. I'm occasionally on Blue Sky at CFless, and then I am on Instagram at Math and Other Things. So that's the name of the podcast that I have. Although, I mean, it's not a giant podcast or anything, but and I didn't drop a episode in February, but that's okay. Yeah,
life is life.
Yeah, but those are the places that you can find me.
Hey. Well, we so appreciate your time, and
of course,
this conversation was super fun.
I'm honored. I was honored to be on your list of people this year, because I think it's great what you all are doing. And when Heidi told me, I was like, really, you want me?
Yeah, please.
So I really appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.
No, I was like, you've been on the list, and I was like, we're making it happen.
It's great. I really appreciate it.
We have a really awesome lineup this year. So
yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Courtney, and I hope that we get to see you in person soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Bye. Again, super fun.
No, I love talking with her and like thinking about how her brain works and the things that she puts together for her teachers.
I know. I mean, look at what she's doing.
Really
Look what she's doing after like not being a math person. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Next week, we're undoubtedly going to have another cool conversation and another person that we know from real life. So fun. Chrissy Hopkinson on March 5th. Oh, it's not next week. Is it next week? Oh, wait, it is next week.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, God.
Sorry, we're in blizzard like time delay here.
I know, so we really don't know.
All the days have gotten completely out of whack. So yes, it is next week, and we are really excited to talk with Chrissy, and we're going to be talking about data and the younger group of kids. So
so fun.
It's going to be really exciting.
So fun. You can always find our book at Didex. And until next week, we hope that you make math creative, curious, and inclusive.
Good night.
Bye.